Today, we're diving into a story that was born from one of the darkest chapters in India's history. It's a novel that took unimaginable suffering and somehow forged it into a song that would echo through a revolution. This is the story of Anandmath. So picture this, a village called Pedachinya. You walk through the marketplace and every shop is empty. The streets are completely silent. These grand, beautiful homes, they're all vacant. There are no birds singing, no cows in the fields. The only sign of life, if you can even call it that, is at the cremation grounds. This is where our story begins, in a ghost town haunted by a massive catastrophe. So where are we? We're in Bengal in the year 1770, or if you're using the Bengali calendar, 1176. And this place, it's a land completely gripped by death. This is the height of the Great Bengal Famine, a disaster on an apocalyptic scale. It was so bad it would end up wiping out nearly a third of the entire population. And what's really shocking is just how fast everything fell apart. It all started with just one bad harvest in 1768. The very next year, the famine truly set in. But the rulers, and that includes the British East India Company, who controlled the money, they kept collecting taxes right down to the last penny. People were forced to eat just once a day. Then came 1770. There was this little flicker of hope with some rain, but it was immediately snuffed out by a total drought. And to make things even worse, the government hiked land taxes by 10%. It was just the perfect storm of natural disaster and absolutely brutal policy. So, what do you even do when your world is ending? Well, people sold everything they had. First, it was their possessions, then their land, and when that was all gone, they had to make these unthinkable choices. They sold their daughters, then their sons, then even their wives. But pretty soon there was no one left to buy anything. So people started eating leaves, grass, weeds, anything they could find. Then they turned to cats, dogs, and rats, and all this malnourishment led to disease. Cholera and smallpox just tore through the land, finishing the job that starvation had started. Society had completely and utterly broken down. So, out of all this massive catastrophe, we're going to zoom in on just one family, Mahendra and Kalyani. They were a wealthy couple, but their grand estate is now basically an empty tomb. With everyone they know either dead or long gone, they're forced to make a desperate choice. Leave everything behind just to survive. You have to imagine this vast, silent mansion, and in it only 3 people are left. Mahendra, his wife Kalyani, and their tiny baby girl. They're the last survivors of this great family, and all their wealth is now completely meaningless. You see, the famine made the rich and the poor equal in their hunger. You can just feel their desperation. It's Kalyani who argues, what good is all our wealth if we're dead? She convinces Mahendra they have to leave. As they're getting ready, Mahendra goes and gets his gun, getting ready for robbers on the road. But then Kalyani, she gets a weapon of her own. Not a knife or a sword, but a small box of poison that she hides in her dress. His weapon is for fighting others, hers is for a final escape from them. Their journey is just grueling. Under this burning sun, they finally stumble into a deserted village. Their baby is crying from hunger, so Mahendra leaves Kalyani in an abandoned house to go search for a cow, for any drop of milk he can find. Kalyani waits in the darkness, absolutely terrified. And then, a shadow appears in the doorway. It's a skeletal, naked man, black as coal. He raises a bony hand and signals to others. And one by one, more figures just emerge from the shadows, surrounding her and her child. Now, these aren't just bandits. These are people who've been pushed way beyond any human limit by starvation. After they rip the jewelry off of Kalyani, they start fighting among themselves. Their leader actually gets killed in the struggle. And then one of them has this absolutely horrific idea. He points to their dead leader and says, they should eat him. But another one looks over at Kalyani and her child and says, why eat that dried-up skeleton when there's tender flesh right here? While these cannibals are distracted, arguing, and starting to build a fire, Kalyani sees her one chance. She clutches her baby and she just runs. She plunges into the pitch-black forest, thorns tearing at her skin, and the horrifying shouts of her pursuers are echoing right behind her. She's just running, blindly, frantically, until moonlight starts to filter through the trees, lighting up the forest and threatening to give away her hiding spot. She can't run anymore. Her body just gives out, and she collapses at the base of a huge tree, praying for it all to end. And just as she starts to lose consciousness, she hears it. It's faint at first, but then it gets clearer. A beautiful, almost divine song floating through the forest air. Hare Murare, Madhukai tabare. It's a hymn. In this heart of darkness, who could possibly be singing? That song, it marks a huge turning point. It introduces us to a new force hiding out in this forest, the Sanyasis. They're warrior ascetics who call themselves the children of the motherland. So there are really two kinds of hunger at play in this story. On one hand, you have the bandits Kalyani just escaped. They were driven by this raw, chaotic hunger of the belly. That's what happens when society completely breaks down. But the Sannyasis, they're driven by a totally different kind of hunger, a hunger for freedom. They're disciplined, they're organized, and they're fueled by a powerful idea. They don't just want to survive, they want to liberate. The man singing the hymn appears. He's a sage-like figure with white hair and white robes. He finds the unconscious Kalyani, lifts her and her baby, and carries them to safety. He takes them to his secret headquarters, this massive, ancient monastery hidden deep inside the forest. And its name is Anandmath, which means the Abbey of Bliss. But what about Mahendra? What happened to him? Well, after finding Kalyani gone, he's just wandering in despair until he runs right into a convoy of company soldiers. They're transporting tax money to Calcutta. The soldiers see the gun in his hand, and they immediately think he's a bandit. So they beat him, tie him up, and throw him onto one of the carts carrying the government's treasury. Well, as fate would have it, the Sannyasis have been waiting for this exact convoy. As the carts enter a narrow pass, 200 armed men just pour out of the trees, shouting, "Hurry, hurry!" A rebel named Bhavananda, who was actually tied up right next to Mahendra, breaks free. He grabs a sword from the British captain and, in one swift move, beheads him. The leaderless soldiers, they just panic and run, leaving the entire treasury in the hands of the rebels. And just like that, Mahendra is freed in all the chaos. Mahendra is just stunned. He thinks he just witnessed a simple robbery. He has no idea what these men are really fighting for. And this brings us right to the heart of our story, the song that would go on to define a nation, Vandemataram. Bhavananda, the rebel who led that attack, walks up to Mahendra. He tells him that he can take him to his wife and child. And as they walk together through this quiet, moonlit forest, a really profound change comes over Bhavananda. The fierce warrior just melts away, and he becomes joyful, almost transcendent. And then he begins to sing. Vandemataram, I bow to thee, mother. The song is this beautiful hymn, and it's praising a mother who is blessed with flowing rivers, abundant fruits, and cool winds, a mother whose fields are dark and heavy with harvests. It's a vision of this perfect, bounteous land. Mahendra is completely confused. I mean, this is beautiful, but it sounds more like he's describing a country, not a person. So he interrupts Bhavananda and asks the question that's probably on all of our minds. Who is this mother you're singing to? And right here, this is the core belief of the Sannyasis. Bhavananda's answer is profound. He says, "We recognize no other mother." He then quotes this ancient Sanskrit saying, "Janani janmabhumishcha swargadapi gariyasi," which means, the mother and the motherland are greater even than heaven. For these rebels, their families, their homes, their entire personal lives, they've all been sacrificed for one single thing, the motherland. She is their only mother, their only family. The song keeps going, and its meaning gets even deeper. The motherland isn't just a piece of land. She is divine. Thou art strength in the arm, thou art faith in the heart. The song is explicitly identifying her with Shakti, the divine feminine power, and with the goddess Durga, the 10-armed warrior goddess who destroys evil. The image they worship in their temples is her. And this is how Anandmath completely transformed the idea of rebellion. For the children of the Abbey of Bliss, fighting wasn't just a political struggle for power. It was a sacred duty. Freeing their land was a form of worship, and dying for it was a form of martyrdom. This song, it gave a spiritual fire to the fight for independence. And that leaves us with this final thought. The novel Anandmath rises directly from the unimaginable suffering of the Bengal Famine. It takes the darkest despair you can think of, cannibalism, disease, the complete collapse of a society, and it transforms that pain into a hymn of divine love and revolutionary hope. Which really makes you wonder, how does a people's deepest pain become its most powerful song?